Alvin Kamara is the key. I mean, always has been. Everything that they do runs through Alvin Kamara. And so I think if Chris Jones and the front seven can really establish, not allow the Saints to establish the run early, and it's not just the run because they get Alvin the ball in so many ways, right? They get him the ball in screens, they get him the ball in the passing game. But if they can shut down Kamara early on in the game and force Derek Carr and that staff to become a drop back passing type offense, I think that's advantage for the Chiefs defense.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello, everybody. What's up? This your boy, Shawn Barber, 10-year NFL vet and host of The Process, where the process is always greater than what it produces. This is week 5 of the NFL season. The Kansas City Chiefs are still undefeated, 4-0, as they enter Monday Night Football versus the Saints. But, man, before we get all into who's who, the strengths, the weaknesses, what's going to come up, man, listen, you know our title sponsor, as you see at the bottom of the screen, is the McGinnis Group. Yes, I work for the McGinnis Group. We specialize in employee benefits, health insurance for companies, retirement, financial services, life insurance, and also long-term care. We would love to have an opportunity to review your company's current plan and learn more about your game plan for the game plan of life. And don't forget, TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. That's team. We always believe in teamwork at the McGinnis Group. So reach out to Scott, to Sonny, to Matt McGinnis, and let one of us, one of our producers, we'll sit down and have a cup of coffee over lunch, something. Let's talk about what your benefit coverages are for your plan to see if we can put together a better game plan for your success overall as it comes to business. Without further ado, man, we got a lot of stuff to get into. Man, we're going to chop it up. My guest today is my man, Kevin Lockett. Oh, not only a personal friend of mine, but also a great father, great husband, mentor to many young athletes here in the Kansas City community, a graduate of K-State, so he's a power cat. Kevin, we're going to jump into it, man. Last week, our Kansas City Chiefs took on the Chargers. It was a close win. Really quickly, what can you take away from the Chargers game when it comes to the Chiefs versus Chargers?
Well, I mean, one of the first things you take away is, like, this is another, one-score game, right? How many one-score games has this team been in? But consistently, they find a way to come out on top. And I think that's the mark of not a good team, but a great team, to have that many close games, but to always come out on the positive side. I think the other person that probably doesn't get enough credit is our D coordinator, Spags. Chargers come in scoring roughly about 20 points a game, and here we hold them to 10, right? And so all of a sudden what you're finding is the Chiefs are winning in different ways, and I just think Spags needs to get much more credit in terms of the different schemes that he's drawing up week in and week out to stop some of the most potent offenses that we've seen over the years.
Man, winning close games, also Spags in the defense. It's not often that an offensive player will come in and the first thing they say is the defense, but I think anybody can recognize that there's something that's been very consistent, even going back last year, is the defensive play. The one thing about our defense, each and every week, I think we get frustrated as fans because the opening drive, I don't know what the record is, but every team scores the opening drive on us. Yeah. The first quarter, the first half, it's almost like we can't stop them. And then right when we need to turn those, just tighten up on defense and really get the notches going is when we see Spags come out with these exotic blitzes, bringing pressure. And this is the thing that I think all the fans want to know. If we can do that late in games in fourth quarter, how come we just don't start games blitzing and coming from the exotics? What do you say from a defensive game planning? What would be the reason, or maybe a possible reason why we're not doing that at the beginning of the game?
You think about most offenses in the NFL, and the first thing they'd like to do is they either have their first 10 or their first 20 plays that they already have scripted, right? And so I think what Spags is doing is he's filling the offense out. He's trying to get a feel for what is the coordinator going to try to do today based on the alignment, based on the motions, based on the areas he's trying to attack on a specific defense. And so I think what Spags is doing is he's filling those out. And then once he gets an idea of what the offensive coordinator is really trying to do and what he's trying to attack, what you see is him making adjustments. And I think he's always been a great in-game adjustment coordinator. And I think that's what you've seen now. And so I think what he does, he comes out pretty vanilla the first, call it 1 or 2 series, really try to get a sense of who they're targeting, who they're trying to get the ball in the hands of. and the areas that they're trying to attack on defense, then I think he makes his adjustments accordingly. And it's worked, week in and week out.
All right. Like you said, a 4-0 start. Even looking at last week more in detail, the Chiefs start out pretty good start out pretty good, but the first drive, we give up a touchdown. Second drive, Patrick throws a ball that I don't know where that came from. Unfortunate interception. I think he could take that back, not only because he ended up an interception, but it ended up with one of our star receivers, our star receiver, not one of them, but our star receiver, Rashee Rice, getting hurt. They haven't really came up with a total diagnosis of whether it's a season-ending injury or just a few weeks. So we're still waiting for some of that information to kind of unfold. But with him being gone, what does the wide receiver room for the Chiefs look like now as far as going forward?
Well, I mean, what did the coordinator do immediately? The first thing Andy did was said, okay, we already had a game plan to get the ball in Travis's hands. Now we really got to get the ball in Travis's hands, right? And so we saw it last year. I mean, I would say, we won a Super Bowl with what many would consider to be sort of a subpar receiving room, right? And so it's not something that's foreign territory to this team. They know how to win, and they'll find ways to win. I think the addition of Hunt is absolutely incredible. I mean, love Pacheco, but Hunt gives us a different style of run. He's even more violent, in my opinion, gets the tough yards inside. Great screen guy, too. Does a good job catching the ball out in space and then getting some screen yardage. So, Andy's so creative. I think he'll find ways to do it. Ideally, you have Rashee Rice is able to come back and it's not as bad, but you also have the option where I'm sure Veach is scouring the market right now looking for any potential opportunities that fit within our salary cap where you maybe bring a guy in that makes some sense. Ideally, hopefully you see Juju and some of those guys step up, but I think we know what we have with Juju and Sky Moore and some of those guys. I think now it's going to lean on Travis a lot. It's going to lean on Hunt a lot until we can get Pacheco, hopefully Rice back, and maybe a guy through free agency.
Man, I like what you're saying. So we talk about the guys we have in-house, not only receivers in the room, but if you look at the practice squad, a Justin Ross or a Nico Remigio, one of those guys getting brought up. And if not, if we do look at the free agency, I'm going to list some guys, and you tell me which one you like the best out of the ones I list. There's a guy who's got drafted by the Giants in 2019, Darius Slayton, who's still with them. We got Amari Cooper, who is with the Cleveland Browns. Their season is not starting out the way they thought they was going to start, so they might be in a position to get rid of him. People talking about, D-Hop, what he's, are they using him the right way? He's shown a little bit of fire last week with the Tennessee Titans. I think he had a pretty good game. And then we talk about Devontae Adams asking to be traded by the Raiders, and then Tyreek Hill with the Dolphins. Obviously, the last two guys come with big cap implications. They come with a lot of you have to trade off some pretty high trade draft picks and stuff to get them. But of those, maybe those five options, what would you rank being one of the ones you think that you would do if you was a Brett Veach, if he was general manager?
Well, so I don't know what all their contracts look like, and so obviously that has to be a big part that you take into account. But if I look at it just from a football perspective, I wouldn't mind doing Amari Cooper. And the reason I say that is when I look at Amari's game, he's now played in 2 or 3 different places. Everywhere he goes, he's just a great route runner. You put a great route runner in a system with Patrick Mahomes, you have a win. He's on year 10. I think he's getting a bit older. He's not as quick as he was, not as fast as he was, still quick in and out of his breaks, still catches the ball well. Maybe not as much separation as you typically like, but when you have a guy like Patrick, you don't need as much separation. And so to me, he's the better fit. When I look at like D-Hop, I think he's lost a step. Not as aggressive, not as quick, not as fast as he used to be. Definitely not a lot of separation. And then the other guys you mentioned, you talk about Devontae, that's a big cap number. You got to move some other pieces for that to work. So the potential plug and play here might be, to go with a Amari, but we'll see what Brett pulls out.
Yeah. Well, Veach got some choices to make. He has some decisions to make when it comes to wide receiver room. One decision we don't have to make is when we talk about the running back position. Because not only is from last week we saw that Kareem Hunt is actually not only available, he's on our team, he actually touched the field. He looked great to me with the carries he did get. But then you also got Samaje Perine. We still got Carson Steele. And then we also got Clyde Allaire, who actually comes off of the 4-week IR. Now he's available to be added to the roster. So the running back room now looks awesome. And that was, at the beginning of the season, kind of a once Pacheco got hurt, we was wondering what we were going to do at that position. So now, the injury bug has bit us in a different area. The concern has now moved out of the running back room and on the wide receiver room. But I think, like you said, the one thing that this team has is it has Coach Andy Reid, you got Patrick Mahomes, and between the two of them, it seems like they always raises everybody's talent level and ability up to the next level. So I think that they have plenty of game plans, plenty of when I talk about Andy Reid's playbook, it's just chapters and chapters. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really. I don't think he doesn't actually feature any specific person week in and week out. He just chooses on a certain game and a certain day to say, hey, this game plan is going to be, we're going to feature Kelsey for the first half, and then we can change and move on to one of the wide receivers in the second half. Last year we have a position we can feature Juju, or we can feature MVS, or we can feature Kadarius Toney. Wherever we needed to, we can kind of create scenarios and schemes schematically on the offense to allow a receiver to come open. So when you have that kind of offensive mindset, I think that you don't succumb to injuries, and they don't really affect your production on the offensive standpoint as much as I think some other teams when they base a whole offensive philosophy around a certain player's skill set, and then when that player goes down, they have to find ways to pivot, go other ways. So.
Well, and don't be surprised if you see the running backs get much more involved in the passing game as well. You look at, when Pacheco comes back, catches the ball well, P. Ryan catches the ball well out of the backfield, Hunt does. So, Andy's going to be creative, and he's going to get different groups of different guys out there to sort of make up for the gap that we currently have with Rashee Rice being down.
All right. Well, to end off segment one, I got to say, in 2017, Andy did create a great offensive game plan that featured Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was drafted that year and actually ended up being led the league in rushing yards that year. Offensive rookie of the year. A phenomenal year. So being that he's back in the building, let's not be surprised if this Chiefs offense does start to feature the running game a little bit more, and especially with Kareem Hunt back in the building. So that's going to end segment one. You're listening to The Process. The process is always greater than what it produces. We'll be back with segment two. In segment two, we're going to talk about some ingredients for success as we talk about, obviously, our segment is sponsored by Red Door Grill. It's one of the best neighborhood restaurants in this area. We'll be right back with you in a moment.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Welcome back to The Process, where the process is always greater than what it produces. And this is segment two, when we talk about ingredients for success. This segment is brought to you by Red Door Grill, a phenomenal restaurant here in the Kansas City area. Well, when I talked about week one, weeks two, weeks three, we talked about some different entrees and some different things you like. Well, Red Door Grill has this great rewards program. And not only do they have a rewards program, it just got even hotter. You spend a little bit to get a little bit. As you're collecting your rewards, you can use your rewards for desserts. You can use it for entrees. You can even use it for swag, handheld food, beanies, T-shirts, hats, hoodies. As the points increase, the values increase on your rewards cards. You can trade those in for different items. So make sure to always get your rewards card and get your points when it comes to Red Door Grill. We love their food. We love the way they've just been a staple in our community. That's one of my favorite restaurants. I always go to the one down at 159th Street. So when you have a chance, go by and visit Josh and the staff there, man. Give them a great opportunity to earn your business. Red Door Grill, the restaurant that definitely serves the Kansas City community needs. Without more ado, we talk about rewards. Well, what I want to talk about when it comes about reward is defense. Obviously, I played linebacker in the league for 10 years. When I look at these first couple of weeks, Kevin, the Saints defense has given up 10 points, 19 points, 15 points, and they really only gave up 12 points last week to the Falcons. And then we look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have given up 20 points, 25, 17, and then 10. So our defense has, gone from week 1 to week 4, getting a little stingier. Their defense started stingy and gave up a little bit. But both teams are really only giving up around 14 to maybe 17 points a game. And so when you look at a recipe for success, I think the defenses are really kind of canceling each other out. And so it's going to come down to maybe whose offense becomes the most efficient on game day. So Monday Night Football, I think the one thing we've seen in the league is usually is kind of a copycat league. So watching Sunday football, watching Thursday Night Football, we'll be able to watch a few games. And if you see certain concepts, passing concepts, things that are being done around the league, I wouldn't take it for granted that we wouldn't see those things emulated on Monday night. So what are some of the things you think offensively, either by the Saints or by the Chiefs, that you think we might see on Monday Night Football?
Well, we talked a little bit already about a re-engineered offense, if you will, from Kansas City. I mean, we're gonna see some plug and play with some different positions, some different guys getting their hands on the ball early. So I expect that. But you're right, both defenses are going to be sound defenses. I mean, what I love here is now you go to the other factors, the X factors. You got home field advantage. I mean, we're playing in Arrowhead. That's going to be huge for Kansas City. Parts of the game, like special teams, are all of a sudden going to become big. Field position will become big. Turnovers are always big. So my hope is that from an offensive standpoint, Patrick sort of settles back in and stops making a few of these sort of careless turnovers where we're giving the ball away, and not just giving the ball away, but giving field position away. I do think that, I got to give the nod to Kansas City. I think if I look at, both defenses, I think our offense is harder to stop than the Saints offense. I mean, Derek Carr is doing a great job down there. He's moving the ball and putting points on the board. But at the end of the day, I think with us playing in Arrowhead, I don't know exactly what the record is, but I know that we play really well at home under Andy Reid.
Yeah, and the Saints, they put up 90 points in the first 2 weeks, which I think is number 3 overall in the NFL as far as records in 2 weeks of football. They have some weapons over there. Obviously, Alvin Kamara has had a tremendous start to his year this year. Olave, the wide receiver. They have another Shaheed. So those have kind of been the three-headed monster in the Saints. They've always featured the running game first, and the running game has been used to kind of set up the passing game. The offensive coordinator there is using the same offense that the Dolphins and the 49ers use. It's a version of the Shanahan game, using the run to set up the pass, and then using the play-action pass to, when they do go for passes, it's big chunks. It's 20, 30-yard shots down the field. Just reflecting to the game against the Falcons, they had Taysom Hill, their jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. He had two rushes in for touchdowns, 6 attempts for 24 yards. Alvin Kamara had a touchdown. He had 19 attempts for 77 yards. He also had 7 receptions for 43. So another game of 100-plus yards from scrimmage for Alvin Kamara. I think he's on pace. All 4 weeks he'd had over 100 yards from scrimmage. But then there's 2 receivers. Both had 8 receptions. Olave went for 87 yards, and Shaheed went for 83. So I think that, unfortunately, they've been eating up time of possession. They've possessed the ball. The offense has done a great job. Going back to one of the things you said about special teams, that has been the Saints' Achilles foot when you talk about last week against the Falcons. Defensively, they didn't give up an offensive touchdown last week. All right, they gave up 3 field goals, and then 2 of the touchdowns added up to 14 points was a muffed punt that ended up getting recovered in the end zone, and then a pick 6. Yep. So when you talk about defenses been playing really, really well, but it's not really receiving the W's in the end, the wins in the end, you will look at one of these defenses and you say the Saints defense has probably been playing, if not as well as the Chiefs defense, maybe a tick better than the Chiefs defense. So there's going to be you talk about a challenge on Monday Night Football. There's going to be 2 equally yoked teams that have really set themselves to come up and really, we talk about Monday Night Football, man. It's everybody eyes on us. It's only one game being played, and so that's when all the stars got to come out. So I'm looking for big games, man. Chris Jones got to come out, Leo Chennault, Justin Reed, McDuffie. All the stars need to come out on defense to really shut down this Saints offense. And I think if we can shut down a balanced offense like the Saints, it really will just really increase the trust. I think we already know we got a really good defense, but there's I think there's still naysayers that are still out here who thinks they will. We got the Ravens early. The Chargers were injured. Cincinnati was a little injured, so there's a lot of excuses of why our defense has been able to perform the way. I think this is one of the weeks we can really right the ship and kind of show everybody on a national setting that it's not only the Chiefs' offense you got to worry about, but the Chiefs' defense.
Yeah, and to me, Alvin Kamara is the key. I mean, always has been. Everything that they do runs through Alvin Kamara. And so I think if Chris Jones and the front seven can really establish, not allow the Saints to establish the run early, and it's not just the run because they get Alvin the ball in so many ways, right? They get him the ball in screens, they get him the ball in the passing game. But if they can shut down Kamara early on in the game and force Derek Carr and that staff to become a drop back passing type offense, I think that's advantage for the Chiefs defense. I think if you let Kamara get going, all of a sudden the play action, deep balls to Olave and some of those guys all of a sudden become a possibility. So again, it all comes down to, we got to stop Kamara. And I think that if I got to put my chips in one bag, I'm putting them in Spag's bag.
All right. Sounds good. Ingredients for success going to be the Chiefs actually valuing the possessions, right? No careless turnovers. Defensively making the Saints offense a one-dimensional offense. And then the third key is going to be letting the special teams be special, not making mistakes, not giving the ball over short fields, and then taking advantage of the weapon we have, which is Butker, making long field goals, making sure that we're using our punter the right way. He's been phenomenal so far all year long, coughing, kicking, having offensive starting inside the 10, sometimes inside the 5-yard line. So that wraps up our keys to success, ingredients for success when it comes to Red Door Grill. Again, thanks Red Door Grill for their sponsorship of this segment. That's segment 2. We'll be right back at you with segment 3 as we talk about the overall picture when it comes to the NFL and what games to expect to be the big games, the big matchups here in Week 5. I'll be right back at you.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back to segment 3 of The Process. The Process is always great in what it produces. It's your guy, Shawn Barber, 10-year NFL vet. Man, I've been fortunate to break down Week 4. We talked about Week 5. We're talking about some ingredients for success. We're talking about the Chiefs versus the Saints. And now we have a chance of breaking down the NFL as a whole. We're going to look at the AFC, NFC playoff picture for a little bit and talk about what are some of the key components. What are some of the constants when we look at team in and team out, which teams are actually in the playoffs and which teams are now, even in Week 4, Week 5, almost on the brink of being out of playoff picture. So, Kevin, really quickly, man, I'm going to list down the current state of the NFL when it comes to playoff picture in the AFC. Okay. We had Chiefs at the 1 seed, the Texans, the Steelers at the 3 seed. We got the Buffalo Bills at the 4 seed, and then the wild card at this moment would be the Jets, the Colts, and the Ravens. So those are the 7 teams that will make the playoffs. And right outside of those 7 teams are the rest of the AFC West teams, which are the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders, which come in at 8, 9, and 10, all 2-2. Early season, and we know, we see the stats as the season starts. You can't start off 0-2. You can't start off 0-3. 0-4 is just the death sentence for trying to make it to the playoffs in the NFL. And there's only one team in the league, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-4. The only winners team in the league so far. But just looking at those AFC teams and looking at the picture, what are some of the common threads you see in those organizations that are leading them to be successful like they are right now?
Well, a couple of things. We continue to talk about, what do winning organizations have? Mm-hmm. One, you have a quarterback who can play the game at a very high level. And so you mentioned the Chiefs. You mentioned the Steelers were 3 and the 2 were Texans. So you got Pat Mahomes, you got C.J. Stroud, and then you got Justin Fields playing at a very high level. The other piece is high defensive level play. And again, you go back and you talk about what Spags is doing with the Chiefs. You know what's happening down in Texas. That defense is flying.
D'Amico got everybody rolling.
And then you got the Steelers, who are known for their defense. Yep. Mike always has a fantastic
T.J. Watts.
Defense. So again, it's not a difficult formula in terms of what it takes to win in this league, but it is very hard to get a defense that plays sound, doesn't get penalties, and allows the offense to put a small number of points on the board. but the hardest piece is always getting a quarterback that can play at a high level. I mean, there's 5, 6 guys that really play at a high level week in and week out. And if you don't have one of those 5 or 6 guys, then you have to be able to overcompensate in some other areas by being just very special on special teams, or something, or playing well on the road. And so that's what I see as a commonality just on those 3 AFC teams. And my guess is when you look across the NFC, which I'm sure we're about to do, you probably don't see the same story.
All right, well, let's do that. We look across at the NFC, and we have an undefeated Falcons team starting at 4-0 in the 1 seed. The number 2 team right now would be a little bit surprising. Is actually the Bucs. The Bucs are the 2 seed with Baker Mayfield. And then we have the 3 seed. I think that's probably the most surprising of anybody is the Commanders, the Washington Commanders, rookie quarterback. I mean, some of the things he's done in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season are setting NFL records. I think they went 2 games in a row without having to punt the ball. So 15 consecutive drives where they ended up with a field goal or a touchdown. So Jim Daniels, I mean, he's doing a tremendous job of kind of, I guess, settling into that offense. And that coordinator, I guess he was a guy.
It's the guy from Texas Tech that was also at
Arizona, right?
I'm blanking on his name now, but the offensive guru that's known for putting people in places. And so, it's him, right? So it's Jalen. It's, it's Baker, who's playing at a high level right now. And then Sam Darnold, who's sort of the sweetheart of the league right now at the quarterback position in terms of playing at a level higher than people ever expected.
And let's not forget the Seahawks. In the 4 seed right now is the Seahawks, obviously.
But again, Geno playing at a very high level. In terms of, I think he's in the top 5 in every quarterback category that there is right now through the first 4 weeks.
I would say your son has something to do with that. Tyler Lockett, your son, I'd say he has something to do with the Seahawks being in that playoff rush right now. But then we're looking at 5, 6, and 7. It's the Lions, the Falcons, and then the Bears. Again, high quality quarterback play. Whether we're talking about Cousins at the Falcons, we're talking about Goff at the Lions, or we're talking about another rookie, Williams at the Bears. So both of those rookies have been able, like you said, it's not just the offense, but if we look at these teams, the common is defense. These are some. We look at the 7 teams in the AFC and the 7 teams in the NFC. I think each of these defenses all list as top 10 defenses in their conferences.
I mean, you look at what Mike McDonald has done with Seattle. You take away the Monday night game against Detroit, where they had a bunch of the front 7 that were out. Those first 3 weeks, they were leading in almost every category on the defensive side. You move down a level, you go to the Lions, I think, who was sitting at number 5. Dan Campbell's always got an incredible defense, and we saw that actually take place on the recent Monday night. So, that's the consistent thread is that you got to have a strong defense, especially when you talk about the NFL being built today as an offensive game. I mean, you look at the way the penalties are thrown. A lot of penalties in favor of the offense. NFL wants a lot of high-scoring games because that's what gets the crowd and the fans excited. Having a defense that can be able to thwart that and slow that down a little bit is absolutely critical.
Man, one thing we talked about, I think year in and year out, everybody talks about this word of parity. How can the NFL create parity so every fan base can feel like their team has a chance to go into a Super Bowl, their chance to go into the playoffs? I can name 5 teams that at the beginning of the year you thought were locks to be a playoff team in the NFC. We talk about the Saints, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Packers, and 49ers. Before the season started, all of those teams were locked as playoff teams, and right now they sit outside the playoffs. Right. They are on the outside looking in. And so when you talk about the NFL creating a product that, like you say, on the field scoring points to get fans there, but then off the field having the ability for every fan base to feel like their team in weeks 5 and weeks 10 and weeks 15 still have a chance to get to the playoffs. I mean, I don't see anything being different. I think that even come weeks 10, weeks 15, there's still going to be a 1 or 2 game difference between the team being the 8th, 9th, 10th team or being the 5th, 6th, 7th waiting for a wild card. And as long as that stays relevant and everybody still has their playoff life on the line, the fan base and attention to details and everything that the fans going to do to participate in fantasy football, everything that makes your normal game day ritual of what you do to help your team win each and every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night football is just going to continue to increase as the season goes. And it's going to just there's going to be a buildup of momentum and energy. I think this is going to end up being one of the most exciting NFL seasons. And then the one thing everybody's waiting on is when is the the champion going to be knocked off the shelf.
Right.
As we went back-to-back champions here in Kansas City, and we're going for a three-peat, something that's never been done in the history of football.
Yeah.
It's never been done because we know there are some things that you can't prepare yourself. You can't prepare yourself for your number one receiver to get hurt. Right. Your number one receiver and your number one running back. And that's within the first 4 weeks of the season. So it's going to be a long season. The injury bug is going to pop up and bite us in the butt again at some point during the season. But I think the Chiefs have done a great job of creating competition levels across the board at all positions, in the depth that Brett Veach has created in position by position. You talk about the linebacker position, the cornerback position, wide receiver and running back, even across the defensive line and offensive line. There's some depth in this team that I think is missing at other organizations. And so when we go to face a team and they're on their backup tackles or their backup center, or they don't have their first wide receiver or tight end, listen, we don't have to make any excuses. Every team has the opportunity to set themselves up with the same parameters when it comes to 53 players being available for the season, and it's who can set up the most depth in their roster. That's usually going to be the team that's going to be around at the end. So,
well, and I even say from the Chiefs' perspective, I think we have a coaching advantage. I mean, from the offensive perspective, I mean, you got a lot of coordinators that are out there. We got a head coach who understands this game better than most, and then we got a defensive coordinator who's doing it at a high level, one of the top three that's in the league, today. And so, to win as many games as we have, as closely as we have, you talk about the depth. That's one piece of it. I think we also have coaching advantage both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. But the other piece that I think why our coaches are so good is I think in-game adjustments is just something that both of those guys do very, very well. We talked about what Spags does from a defensive perspective, but even when you look at Andy, if Andy is looking to focus, let's say, on the ball, getting Kelsey the ball early in the game, and it seems like the defense is just adamant about taking that away, he's not going to try to take a round peg and stuff it in a square hole. He just adjusts, and all of a sudden he decides to feature someone else. And that's the deal. His offense is so fluid. It's so flexible. And it's really more about if you are in a position role and you do your job, then 15 is the one who's the captain. He runs the show, and he will get the ball in your hands. And so what I love is no matter who's at a receiver, the offense is built in a way where all of our receivers, if you notice, they catch the ball on the run. There's very few routes like curl routes where our chest is facing the quarterback. We're catching the ball on the run. And so, again, that's why a guy, like if you go out and get somebody like Amari Cooper, makes sense to me. Good route runner, get the ball in his hands while he's on the run and get going. So there's just some small pieces that I think we have an advantage of as well. And that didn't even take into account Arrowhead.
Man, great job talking about the Arrowhead, the energy, the Sea of Red brings, the coaching staff, Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, and also Dave Tobe. He actually got interviewed a few years ago back for a head coaching job. So we got 3 potential head coach in all 3 phases, and that's not even mentioning the staff under him, the Matt Nagy, Dave Merritt, and everybody. So, I mean, possibly 5 or 6 potential head coaches all coaching the roster here at a very high level. And you add that all with Chris Jones, and you add that with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and it's no surprise the Chiefs are 4-0, facing ability to go 5-0 here on Monday Night Football. All right, so let's talk about some of the good matchups to going into Week 5, and then we'll put a bow on this. The first game I wanted to talk about really quickly is the Buffalo Bills that are at the Houston Texans. Obviously, like you said, 2 of the top quarterbacks, Josh Allen is facing CJ, and the Texans defense, they're going to be at home. They're going to be very hungry. DeMeco Ryans is the head coach there. He has that defense playing at a very high level. I think that the Texans in the last 2 weeks have stumbled a little bit offensively. And I don't know, is it because injuries to Tank Dell, Nico Collins was a little bad up. And then their running back position, they had 2 running backs go out. I know there was Joe Mixon was a starting running back, and then they had their backup running back. So they had to start Cam Akers for the last 2 weeks. So maybe not having that consistent the running back they were used to back there might have caused some little hiccups in their running game, but you would still think there's enough talent in the room offensively with Collins, and then with the wide receiver they got from the Buffalo Bills.
Diggs. That's the matchup I'm looking for. Oh, yeah. Right? Like he's away from home now. Now he's in Houston. That's his spot. and he's going back playing his old team with in Buffalo. So that's going to be a remarkable game. I think it's going to be a good defensive game. That defense that D'Amico has is stingy, and they're very, very physical. And I'm gonna assume as the season goes on that Houston defense is going to get even better. So the more they beat people up and people's bodies get beat up, the more effective that defense is going to become.
Well, they got some dogs there that can come up to the ball. Daniel Hunter, obviously Will Anderson is the rookie of the year on defense. They got some guys that can really get after the passer. But hey, man, Josh Allen's been phenomenal. I think if there is a modern day Ben Roethlisberger, a guy that can, kind of push some guys off and still make throws, he keeps his eyes downfield. And when they talk about with him running the ball, he's a Mack truck out the backfield. So interesting matchup. I got the Texans still winning the game just because I'm a former teammate of D'Amico, so I'm a root for him. The next matchup is the New York Jets actually are going and playing at the Minnesota Vikings. What do you think about that matchup?
That'll be a good matchup because typically I would say the Jets win this game, but the way that Minnesota's been playing, especially at home, with Sam Darnold, he's been taking care of the football, been playing good football. I'm going to go with Darnold and go with the Vikings. I think there's just a lot of things surrounding the Jets right now, especially a little bit of off the field issues that are going to be some challenges for them. So I think the Vikings win that game.
I like that too. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Vikings also. I think the Minnesota's defense is a blitz first, ask questions later. I think some defenses like to wait for the first or second quarter. They want to feel you out. They want to let you get through the first 15 to kind of see what's working, what's not. And the defensive coordinator in Minnesota, I think he's fearless. I think he is just saying, hey, either you're going to score in 2 or 3 plays or we're going to sack you. Right. And he is bringing the house. He's bringing overload blitz. He's bringing dogs and pressures from every place. Yeah. And the back end is just holding up. They're finding a way. I think they have a veteran back end. And he's got some guys out there that really know how to hunt the quarterback. And they've been making a really good push to me it being one of the top defenses in the league so far through the first 4 weeks of the season. So, like you said, having Sam Darnold have a chance to have a little revenge game against the team he used to be with. I think when he was with the Jets, that was the infamous I'm seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
There was a game where I don't know who he was playing against, but there was a game where they were not bringing pressure, but he was throwing it like it was pressure coming. They caught him on the sideline with a hot mic, and he says, "Hey man, I'm seeing the blitz come," and everybody was like, "Man, this game is getting out of hand really quick." So, but yes, Sam Darnold has definitely turned things around. We're seeing a rebirth of Slick when it comes to Sam Darnold. So yes, I also got the Vikings defending the home. The skull clap will be going out there in Minnesota. I think Minnesota actually remains undefeated and goes to 5-0. And then obviously the feature game is going to be Monday Night Football. The New Orleans Saints come here to Kansas City to face the Sea of Red at GEHA Field, Arrowhead Stadium, our Kansas City Chiefs. Really quick, how does that match up? Maybe a summary. We talked about it obviously with 2 segments, but what do you think the final product of that game is going to end up being?
Probably another 1-score game if we know the Chiefs. Good close battle, but I think the home field advantage is going to be big. I think Patrick does a better job of taking care of the ball. We have a couple of guys on offense step up that maybe haven't been, big performers up to this point, and we end up winning by 5 or 6 or something like that. So I think the Chiefs remain undefeated, just like the Vikings.
All right, all the home teams win. I got Kevin the same way, man. I got the Chiefs defending their home field. I got them winning 24-20. I think the defense holds up, creates a couple turnovers. I think some of the special teams gifts or whatever you want to call them that the Saints have packaged up and given teams, I don't think they stop. I think they're in the mood of giving. This is the season for giving. So I think they gift a couple of muff punts or just some block punt or something from a special team standpoint that works to our advantage, gives us a short field. We go score. I am so excited to see Kareem Hunt face this defense. I think that the one thing the Saints do, they get after the quarterback. They play good on the back end. But I think the soft underbelly of the beast is their run defense. I think a running back can really, running back like Kareem Hunt, ground pound, just make awesome balance, always running behind his shoulder pads. You see him, he's man, every time he has the ball, always one of the best guys at making guys miss. So it always takes a group to get him down. So I'm looking forward to a big game out of Kareem Hunt. Again, Travis Kelce controlling the middle, keeping those safeties from getting too involved. And then obviously Xavier Worthy over the top. That's been something. Even the big shots, I think a week ago against the Chargers, I still personally think that Patrick underthrew him a little bit. He still had to slow up. So I'm curious to see if we can actually throw a ball far enough to see how fast this young man can go. Man, he's phenomenal world-class speed, and having that available each and every down is going to be amazing. So we're gonna see what goes on, man. Again, Monday Night Football, the Saints come to Kansas City. It's going to be a tremendous game. Don't you miss it. Man, I got to thank my man Kevin Lockett for coming and sharing some of his thoughts and nuggets and wisdom of what's going on in the league. And also, again, Red Door Grill, thank you for your support, and also the McGinnis Group, who's our title sponsor. Well, that'll do it. That wraps it up. Week 5, the process, where the process is always greater than what it produces. I'm your guy, Shawn Barber. I'll be right back with you next week. Peace.